Thanks for joining. My name is Stephanie Myers, and I'm one of the sales managers for the U.S. market, probably the coolest sales manager. So I'm glad you joined this episode to hear from Dr. Karen because she is really great at being consistent and setting up for success. She even takes you back all the way to how she's been setting herself up for success in her business. And she wants to share her best practices with you. Let's take a listen to this podcast. Enjoy.
Although this particular podcast may not have any claims, we do need to read a couple disclaimers so that we can put it on all the podcasts and that we will be covered. So first of all, for product statements, these statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. And for earnings and lifestyle. The earnings and lifestyle portrayed are not typical. Earnings are calculated on a sales to consumers. No sales or commissions are guaranteed. Success results only from your diligent efforts. For typical earnings, see the average annual earnings chart at www.usanincome.com. Hi, Karen. How are you?
Hey, Nathan. Great. It's good to be here.
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I know you're so busy. You have so much going on. So being able to spend some time with us today, I appreciate that so much. So thank you.
Yeah, it's always great to hang out with you.
So Karen, awesome. So part of the idea behind this podcast and what we're doing within this podcast is we're getting tips and tricks from top leaders. And so I know you're one of the top leaders here in USANA. You've been around for 18 years. I mean, it's a long time. You've learned a lot and you've grown a lot. Your team is solid. So we figured, we'd love to have you on here and kind of talk about some of the things that you have found along the way that has worked with you in growing your team. So I guess the first thing is, if you were to talk to somebody who's kind of trying to figure it out, trying to start their business and make it grow, what would be maybe like a tip or two that you would give to someone in that situation?
Yeah, that's a good question. Oh, the first thing comes to mind is don't do it alone. I know a lot of people join USANA and they may not have a sponsor that's actively involved, or even a sponsor that's aligned with the way you want to grow your business. So what I'm noticing a lot of people doing is they reach out to Crossline to develop a like-minded kind of mastermind group to be able to not just learn from and share ideas, but be accountable. So I think that's on the top of the list. Don't do this alone. I joined USANA with Deb Kern. We joined at the same time. And I just think about the times that we collaborated, especially in the early times when you're just growing your business and you're doing a lot and maybe it doesn't feel like things are sticking. And we had each other and we supported each other. And then as our team grew, we stuck together, and that is so important. I think people really leave the business because they don't have that support. So I call it the Lone Ranger syndrome. Don't follow the Lone Ranger syndrome. And if you don't have an upline that's active, find a support, find a mastermind. And what's lovely is, Nathan, you and the field team really do a great job of trying to connect people together to find their mastermind. So before we even get into action and what to do, that would be on top of my list, is find a support team.
Yeah, I love that. I know, like in my personal life, if I have an accountability partner or an accountability group, I tend to have more success in whatever that activity is. It doesn't matter what it is. But if I have somebody that knows what I want to do and maybe we're aligned and we're doing that same thing, we're doing it together, the chances of me being able to get to whatever that goal is a lot higher than if I'm going about it with that Lone Ranger syndrome and trying to do it all by myself.
Yes. And we have this monkey mind of when we're just in our own world, because having our own business is great, but that means we have our own business on our own. And we can be our own worst enemies, let's face it, with our kind of called monkey mind. So even power hours that are starting up too, there's a lot of different groups doing these power hours. Come on Zoom together and work together. There's so many opportunities to be part of a group. So there's no excuses to not do this, because depending what you like, and again, I'll probably talk about authenticity. That's just a big word for me in growing this business, the way that's right for you, that's aligned with your values and your languaging. So choose your group that's really kind of your tribe, that aligns with how you want to grow the business.
Yeah, I love that. And maybe that means getting a little bit uncomfortable, right? Getting uncomfortable and reaching out to somebody. I know a lot of people feel like, there's tools out there for me. I can do this if I just gather everything. And yeah, there are tools out there, but like you said, getting it in a group, that's a huge aspect of starting off right and moving towards that success path.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, for you, I know you said you started with Deb Kern, you had a support group right from the beginning. Did you just start having success right away, or was it trial and error a little bit here and there? Like, kind of tell us, you don't need to go into a lot of detail about that, but kind of tell us like what you went through in the beginning and kind of what made it so that you got to where you're at today.
Yeah. Well, no, I did not have success right away. But what I did do is I started from where I was at. Because when I first started 18 years ago, I didn't really know very much. It took me, I always tell my team, it took me 3 months to work out the compensation plan, the right side, the left side, where to place people. I mean, once it clicked, I thought, oh, of course, I see how this works. But it took a long time. But that didn't stop me getting started. So what I did is I utilized my upline. At that time, it was Penny Kirk. Big kudos, love to Penny and Phil, who did calls for me. At that time, it was conference calls because we didn't do Zoom back then. And I would just invite my friends based on where I was at. I would say, honestly, I just started in this business and I think it might be something you're interested in, but I'd love you to take a look and listen to this call. Would you be willing to jump on? And I had Penny do all the work, all the talking, because she was the expert. She'd been around a long time. And then I kept doing that. And that's how I got my first few team members. And we grew together. I was honest. I said, we're going to learn this together because I just started. And then I immediately started team calls so that we stayed together. So connection and belonging, it's a big part of my team and my concept. I still to this day have team calls every week, and whoever turns up turns up. And it's just really important for me too, to have a touchstone of connection and belonging, because we're each out doing our own thing and having that opportunity to be together. So it took me about a year to build I think it took me 2 years to get to gold, but it took me a year to start to really see the rewards for my efforts. So it takes patience and excitement. So I think that's what kept me going. I was so excited about the opportunity and the idea of being part of a team. And for me, is having an opportunity to shift the healthcare world in my own little way, because I came from a background that was more disease focused, and then I was so excited to be more health focused, and that excitement kept me in the game even though nothing much seemed to be happening. Right. So that's really important. That's why we always talk about getting clear about your why. It doesn't have to be like all eloquent and got all the words together, but just this why that excites you. And to this day, that still holds me, that I can be part of the shift from disease care to health care. That's predominantly what really excites me. And to do that with a team of conscious-minded people that we all are aligned with together makes it sweeter, because I wouldn't want to do it on my own. So just being driven by that. And we're all different. Some people it's finances. Some people it's I just want to be able to pay my car payment. That's great. That's your excitement. Hold it and let that drive you.
Yeah, I love that. And it sounds like during that time where you maybe weren't seeing the success that you were hoping for right away, you still did the steps. You still were doing things so that eventually you had that passion, you had that drive, that eventually you knew that if you continue to do it, that you would end up getting there.
Yes. And back then when I started, my real focus was to build a team where we could all do it together, because I didn't want to do it myself anymore. That burnout that so many health practitioners have because we're doing it all ourselves. This concept of a team collectively I loved. So I really focused on building my team with associates then. And then I got my 4. We always talk about the 4. And then we learned together, we grew together. And some of those 2 I can think of off the top of my head are still with me today. Active, very active. So I'm really proud of that because we're family, and I don't intend to retire. That word doesn't exist in my vocabulary. I get asked all the time. I said, nope, I'm not. I just keep reinventing myself.
I love that. I love that. And you do have an amazing team, and they all seem to be very cohesive. And I know when I'm talking to somebody, I don't even necessarily have to know that they're on your team, but after having a conversation, I kind of know just based on the words that they use and how they talk, that you do a very good job at keeping that team together and the glue of everybody having that community and that camaraderie. So
Yeah, and I'll say to that, Nathan, so everybody knows, that doesn't mean don't have people that leave. Like, I can't even count. Most leaders been around my length of time. I look at my tree and sometimes I think, oh, where did she go? Oh. And that's okay because people come in and they've got to find their own why. They can't carry mine. They've got to find that excitement in themselves. And that's kind of my job, to help them ignite themselves. And if they can't or they don't in that moment, then maybe they drift away. But then I have sometimes people coming back. Just allow the process to unfold and put your energy into those that keep moving forward. And if people kind of want to come back into the tribe, I'm always here. I'm not going anywhere. So that's okay. Don't be driven down by the negativity of someone dropping out, because it's natural part of the growth.
awesome. I love that. Thank you. Yeah, and I'm going to kind of shift it a little bit. You mentioned earlier, we didn't used to have Zoom. It was just conference calls and those things. And now it seems like we're really focused on social media, and a lot of people want to get on Instagram, or Facebook probably is phasing out right now. I mean, there's the TikTok, there's all these social media platforms. And I know we were talking about this a little bit earlier, like social media, you can have a good outreach. But you were saying that there's a different tool that you use that you found has been really, really effective. So can you go into that?
Yes. And the disclaimer is I'm of the generation, right, that's not so social media savvy. With that said, I'm certainly on Instagram. If you look at my Instagram, I post there. I've done some courses to learn about the call to action and in your bio having a link. But here's my role with social media is to get them off social media onto my, what I call real estate, which is my email list. And most of the health education marketing folks that do any kind of training for wellness practitioners will tell you that your email list is your golden ticket in your business. Do not put social media ahead of that, because these people know, like, and trust you already because they have chosen to be in your email list. And there are many email providers. If you're just starting out, I recommend MailChimp. I know that's a weird name, but MAIL and then CHIMP, because it's free for your first group of subscribers. And then you need some kind of free giveaway to offer, which you can put in your bio on Instagram. Click on my bio for the free, say, recipes. You can go into your hub, into the Share USANA Media Center. You can make a PDF of some of the recipes there. You could even do the health journal. A lot of people use the health journal as their free giveaway, or sometimes it's called the lead magnet in marketing terms. And you start building your email list based on this valuable giveaway. And that email list is who you talk to constantly to provide great information. You are not selling all the time to this email list. You are nurturing them with valuable content based on your why. So in my case, I'm all about health. I talk a lot about gut health and sugar and heart health. Like, think about the themes of the month. It's limitless what you can share. And then Ask the Scientist has great information. In fact, I'm just preparing a newsletter, and I always go to Ask the Scientist to kind of look at some great titles that they have. And because the title of the email is so important, whether someone opens it. So nurturing your email list, I cannot reinforce enough. Do not say throw the baby out with the bathwater being social media. Do not throw, is that how it's said? Is that how the saying goes? Do not focus so much on social media that you forget about your building your email list. And people might say, yeah, but I'm not an influencer. We're all influencers. We decide to be an influencer. If you've chosen to be in USANA, you're an influencer. You have the opportunity to influence people's health decisions. So use all the tools that you have through Ask the Scientist and Share USANA Media Center to start sharing valuable information based on what you think your clients want. And keep doing that. And you do social media with the goal of offering a freebie to have people get into your email list. So hopefully that's understandable for folks.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think, if you don't feel like you're an influencer, what I've heard that some people have done is, you've been in a spot before. And so think about where you are now. And if you're listening to this, you probably have access to Ask the Scientist. You probably know about that. The hub and the Share USANA Media Center that Karen mentioned. Like, you have all this knowledge that you might not feel like you have a lot of knowledge, but you have a lot more than a lot of people do. And if you think about where you were a year or 2 or 3 ago, and maybe that's kind of a start anyway, start thinking about where you were at and what you were thinking at that time and what you wanted to know. And that can be your target audience if you don't have an idea where you want to start already. That was a tip that I've heard from someone that they said, at least to get started, think in that term, educate yourself from 3 years ago and provide value to that person. And you'll start to be able to build a following, and then you can tailor it and refine it as you go.
Yeah. And think about who you follow, who in the health space, there are many experts. And so in your newsletter, you could actually say, I just listened to this great podcast, or I just read this great article by such and such, who's a big influencer, and here's what I learned. So the content doesn't have to come from us. We can share with references, of course, really good content. Because like you said, we think people know this information, but they really don't.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then what would you say, in getting started with this, how much time would you give it? Because I know some people will say, well, I tried it a couple times, it didn't work. Like, what's a time frame that you would say, give it an honest effort for this much time before you start to pull back on it or to make adjustments?
Well, when it comes to the e-newsletter, it is a little time consuming because you do the article and do the newsletter. And I would say do one every other month, like do something that's doable within your time frame, and block out business hours to do it. Just like you might block out an hour to watch a webinar, you block out an hour to make your newsletter. You just set it up and don't stop. This is an interesting story. Sometimes I think, oh, no one's reading my newsletter. Like, MailChimp does give you statistics about how many people opened it, how many people clicked on the links, because in your newsletter you can put share links to USANA products that's related to the topic if you want, share links to a blog article, and it tells you how many people open it, which is good, but I feel like, well, maybe I'm not getting any orders from my newsletter. And then I had someone that joined my team, this was years ago now, that had been reading my newsletters for 2 years and then suddenly decided to join my team. But it took her 2 years of reading my newsletters, and I didn't know she was reading them. So I never forgot that, because you just have to keep doing it. And newsletters never stop. Even if you feel like it's not working, I guarantee this is, until maybe the world changes I know people say, oh, people don't read emails. They do if the title is right, if the title grabs them. And I have about a 30% open rate now for my newsletter, which is really good industry standards because these people already know me, whereas they get streams of emails from, we all do, emails from, I don't know how I got on those lists, and I just delete, delete, delete. But when it's someone that you know, you're more likely to open it. And social media also, stream. So I cannot encourage enough. Never give up. Keep doing it. And set aside business hours to make it happen.
Awesome. All right. Well, Karen, like I said at the beginning, I appreciate your time. I know you're so busy. I've taken up so much, but this has been great. A lot of great content, a lot of great tips for anybody who's listening in terms of getting started, or maybe, adding another way to connect with people, or maybe, like you said, taking people from online to offline or into your real estate. I love all that. Before I let you go, though, is there any parting words, any last minutes of any last advice, words of advice that you'd like to give us before we go?
Yeah, well, over 18 years, I've seen USANA change a lot, of course. And when new things come in, just be open to them and be true to yourself. So that's probably my biggest message is I grow my business with the health message, and that's so true for me. That's my lane. So figure out what's true for you and then be an influencer around that. And if it's the business and the affiliate program, say, and you're so excited about the affiliate program, then go for that. But don't feel that just because someone else is doing something, you have to do it. Because USANA offers so many opportunities to do this business your way. And your way is the right way. And it'll work because it's true and authentic to you. So sometimes people need permission to kind of hear that, and permission to do this in a different way than maybe even their sponsor does it. And they feel, I go kind of with my gut, like, does it feel like the flow is happening, or do I feel, oh, I'm not sure about this, and I play around with it and I experiment until I'm in the flow. So, and that's an uncomfortable process too, to try and figure out, okay, I'm going to do it this way or that way, or let me try this, see how that feels. Let me try this, see how that feels. And that's kind of fun too. That's what being an entrepreneur is about.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Karen. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. This has been a great almost 30 minutes.
Oh my gosh, that went fast.
We'll have to do this again sometime.
Great.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.